Welcome to Cheating Tales Diary. Before we dive into today's story, we have a humble request. Please consider subscribing to this new channel. Help us hit our first milestone of 1,000 subscribers. Your support will motivate us to keep bringing you more exclusive original cheating wife stories. And now let's get started with today's story for Tyler Grayson. The day started just like any other. A mild golden morning in California's wine country. The sweet scent of lemon blossoms in the garden, and the sound of his twin daughters' laughter slicing through the air as they chased bubbles across the lawn. But away from the party buzz, tucked inside the guest room, once his home office, Tyler stood behind the wall holding his breath. He just needed a moment to clear his head, but what he heard instead shattered something inside him. Claire's eyes are brown. Tyler's are green. So, how are the girls' eyes that blue? His mother, Eleanor, whispered. Same thing I thought, added his Aunt Karen. And their hair? So blonde? That doesn't run in either family. Tyler's fingers tightened around his coffee mug. Outside, smiley face balloons floated gently in the breeze. But inside him, something cold, heavy, and slow was taking root. Like a part of his heart had started to freeze. He'd been suspicious for weeks. Claire's sudden glow, the new yoga classes that ran late, the way she avoided eye contact with him some days. But suspicion was one thing. Proof was another. That night, after the party, once Claire and the kids had gone to bed, Tyler opened his laptop, pulled up the 23andMe website, and ordered a DNA test kit. It was just the first step, down a long, terrifying road. The next morning, he opened a new Excel file, separate from his work spreadsheets for clients. He named it Claire Ledger. Audit begins. Tyler wasn't just any husband. He was a CPA, a certified public accountant. For over 20 years, he had managed people's estates, tax shelters, and offshore holdings. He was trained to detect patterns in numbers. But this time, he was searching for patterns in human intent. The DNA kit would take 7 business days to arrive. Every hour mattered. He bought spyware, a stealth tracking program that's silently installed on Claire's iPhone, iPad, and MacBook. He accidentally pocketed her phone during errands and installed the software. Later that night, while she was in the shower, he accessed her MacBook. It took just 45 seconds. For the first 2 days, nothing obvious came up. But on the third night, a pattern emerged. Encrypted chats with someone listed only as Z. Z, Tyler thought. Zach? Zach, the man who came to teach piano and reading to their daughters. Claire had said he was an honors grad, a safe presence around kids. But she'd never mentioned that Zach visited the house when Tyler was out at meetings. The next week brought a new jolt. Tyler checked security camera footage from the driveway. Zach's car had shown up 3 times while Tyler was out of town. Once, Claire had let him in. He stayed for 4 hours. That evening, Claire came back from the gym, and a small note slipped from her bag. Tyler picked it up immediately. To my muse, you inspire melodies I didn't know I had. Z. For the first time, Tyler found himself shaking. Not out of rage, but from the realization that his entire marriage might have been a carefully rehearsed performance, and he was just a spectator who never got the real script. That night, he stood beside the beds of his daughters, Ava and Riley. One had her hair sprawled across her cheek. The other clutched his old plush bunny in her tiny fist. Tyler leaned in, gently brushed their hair aside, and looked into their eyes. Clear, piercing blue eyes, just like his mother's voice had said. Runs in no one's bloodline. The DNA kits had arrived. 3 small tubes. Simple instructions. Tyler collected his saliva sample. Then his daughters, they thought it was part of a new science game. Claire didn't ask. Maybe because she didn't want him to. Maybe because she believed he never would. Tyler sent the samples through FedEx. Overnight priority. Now, it was just a matter of waiting. Each day, Tyler combed through Claire's emails, calendar, and chats. He saw she had scheduled a meetup with an old contact named Monica. Next to that entry, she'd scribbled a note. "Don't mention Zach by name." Tyler started building a new timeline on his whiteboard. Just like forensic accountants trace financial fraud, every suspicious transaction, every odd day, every moment that didn't add up, he pinned them all. 3 days later, an email landed in his inbox. "Your DNA results are ready to view." Tyler logged in with trembling fingers, clicked the dashboard, then the tab labeled Paternal Relationship. 2 words stared back at him. Not a match. The first result, Ava, not his biological child. Tyler didn't flinch. He opened the second report. Riley, not a match. The room was silent, lit only by the cold blue light of the screen. Outside, Claire was sitting on the picnic blanket with the girls, laughing, as if nothing had happened. Tyler closed the laptop. Then quietly, "Audit begins now." He was no longer a husband. Tyler had become a forensic strategist. His work now wasn't emotions. It was evidence. The DNA results had hardened something inside him, transforming pain into precision. There was no rage, no panic, only a plan. He knew revenge couldn't be loud, not with yelling. This war would be fought in court, cold, calculated, and legally airtight. His first move, he withdrew $75,000 in cash from his emergency fund. But it wouldn't be for emergencies anymore. He split it into 3 parts. One went to his old accountant friend Blake, now operating under the table, creating anonymous crypto wallets. The second went to a retired cop named Julius, 58, discreet, and a master of ghost-tailing. The third, surveillance technology pen recorders, GPS chips, a soundless drone with infrared. Julius started reporting back in 3 days. Claire and Zach met 4 times at a high-end downtown apartment. Julius got photos. Claire's car parked below Zach's building. Then her walking into the lobby. Another showed her hair wet, holding a wine bottle. One photo, taken from Zach's balcony, showed Claire in a bathrobe, Zach's hand resting on her shoulder. Tyler saved the images to his encrypted drive under. Phase 1. Primary evidence. But something far darker surfaced when one morning, while checking Ava's iPad for YouTube history, Tyler accidentally tapped into the voice memos folder. A file labeled April 3rd Secret. He hit play. Claire's voice, soft, rushed, almost whispering. "No, baby. Daddy doesn't need to know. You're Zach's little secret too, remember? Just like our sleepover at the music house. We don't want Daddy to feel sad." Tyler nearly dropped the iPad. His entire body froze. He immediately extracted the file in a secure format and stored it in his legal evidence folder. This was no longer just adultery. This was potentially child manipulation. Grooming. Claire's recklessness could become her greatest downfall. That same evening, Tyler called his personal therapist, not for a session. He just needed one line. If someone feels like their life is being stolen from them, what's the safest way to steal it back? After a pause, the therapist said, "Reverse the narrative. Quietly, legally. Let them hang from their own rope." That's all Tyler needed. He began making covert changes inside his firm's systems. During the active tax quarter, he simulated the voluntary closure of 2 major client accounts, both under his authority. He had the signed consent forms, forged, but prepped digitally for months, impossible to trace. Then he sent a resignation letter to the firm's CFO. A careful email laced with keywords: burnout, family issues, mental health. Tyler was now officially unemployed. Claire started noticing the shift. Tyler stopped going out. He'd sit at home late into the night, watching old files, binging courtroom dramas. Justice at Dawn, all 6 seasons in a week. One night she asked, "Are you okay, Ty?" Tyler smiled, that same accountant smile, soft, unreadable. "Just decompressing, Claire. Lot on my mind." She nodded, but clutched her bag tighter before walking away, like she could feel the walls around her secrets starting to close in. Later that week, Tyler created a new Gmail account, under a fake name. From that new email account, Tyler sent a video to Claire's gym. Drone footage showing Claire and Zach in their backyard, drinking wine together. The subject line read, "Safety concern for child proximity activities." The result? The next morning, Claire received a call. The gym opened an internal review and placed her on a 1-week suspension, pending personal evaluation. Claire was hysterical. She showed Tyler the email, panicking. "Some psycho is doing this, Ty. This is crazy." Tyler furrowed his brow and said calmly, "Claire, is there something you're not telling me?" Claire froze. "I swear, I don't know anything," she whispered. Tyler nodded once. "Okay." That night, he pulled out an old book, The Art of Asset Erasure, a gift from an ex-client who had vanished in Panama years ago. On the first page, Tyler scribbled, "Claire Ledger. Page 1 ends here. Page 2 will be published in court." Tyler Grayson was no longer Tyler. He now saw himself as a fiscal illusionist, a magician who stood in plain sight while everyone looked the wrong way, never noticing the real trick. The DNA results, the surveillance footage, the audio files, they weren't scattered anymore. Tyler had organized everything into a master folder labeled Claire 404. But now came a new war, financial warfare. He knew Claire's deepest addiction wasn't love. It was luxury. 110 haircuts, 600 heels, Amazon orders stacked with self-care products totaling thousands. Tyler's first move. He met with his private banking agent and activated 2 special trust accounts, one in Belize, the other in Luxembourg. To move money, he created a new shell company, Winlock Advisory LLC. No physical address, just a legal mailbox. His name was nowhere on the paperwork. The listed director was a 72-year-old Belgian man Tyler had once helped during a tax audit. Inside his former firm, Tyler quietly circulated lost papers. They showed a major real estate client suing the firm for non-performance. It wasn't true. But Tyler had planted enough digital traces that, a month after his resignation, the internal auditors believed the fraud narrative. Then Tyler terminated himself, officially. His HR file now read, "Voluntary termination due to mental stress and reputational risk." He told Claire, "Things are bad. I think the firm's going under." Claire looked shaken at first, then softened. "Don't worry about the house. I can ask my dad for a short-term loan if we need it." Tyler gave a tired smile. "That won't be necessary. I've got savings." What Claire didn't know was that those savings had already been liquidated. That very week, Tyler sent the cash, through a blind courier, to his offshore attorney. His real estate, no longer in his name. He had traded both his cabin house and a rental property through an equity swap. A legal barter arrangement that left no traceable ownership. Using a property swap program, he transferred the assets out of Claire's reach, like a blind maze of paper trails. And Tyler himself had started to change, physically. His eyes looked sunken. His hair was messier. He rotated the same 3 gray sweatshirts. In one corner of the house, he set up his old college books and a small TV. Day and night, he binge-watched Justice at Dawn, the courtroom drama. He paused each episode, wrote down the judge's phrases, noted body language, cross-examinations, the rhythm of testimony. Claire started to think Tyler was slipping into depression. She began showing sympathy, bringing him green tea, rubbing his shoulders. Tyler called it the asset of trust. Because the moment your enemy starts underestimating you, is when you strike hardest. Claire still bought her $14 smoothies every morning. For the kids' health, she said, justifying the indulgence. One day, Tyler asked casually, "Do we really need those smoothies anymore?" Claire snapped a little. "Don't start, Ty. You always cut corners when things get hard." Tyler wrote the line down in his notebook. And below it, Claire equals consumption pattern equals unaltered equals unaware equals still vulnerable. During that time, Tyler installed another spyware on Claire's Mac, this time a keylogger. Now whatever Claire typed, Tyler knew. 3 days later, Tyler received a message log from Claire's phone. She had texted Zach. "He's so checked out. Watches courtroom shows like he's prepping for something. Creeps me out TBH. But also, that means more time for us, right?" Tyler looked at the phone screen and whispered, "Exactly. More time for us." That same week, one of Claire's nights out got canceled. Zach was probably unavailable. So Claire walked into the living room and said, "Hey, how about a movie night?" "Like old times?" Tyler looked at her, nodded quietly, opened Netflix and played Gone Girl. Claire shifted uncomfortably. "You like this one?" she asked. Tyler smiled, eyes on the screen. "I'm just taking notes." The next day, Claire called her best friend Monica. "I think he knows. He's changed. He's not yelling, not angry, just watching me, like he's cataloging everything." Monica replied, "Girl, if he had proof, he'd be gone." Claire whispered, "No. He wouldn't leave. He'd wait. That's what scares me." But by now, it was too late. Tyler had started a new ritual. Every morning, standing before the mirror, saying to himself, "Your family wasn't lost. They were stolen. Your life wasn't broken. It was breached. You're not angry. You're aligned." Then one day, Claire found an envelope in the mailbox. No name, just an old Polaroid, a photo of her and Zach drinking wine on a rooftop bar. On the back, handwritten, "Losses can be hidden, but so can traps." Claire burned the photo. What she didn't know was that Tyler had recorded her reaction on the hallway cam. Claire had always loved roses, especially those deep red ones, fragrant like secrets folded into every petal. But today, when she saw a single rose resting on the front porch, her soul shivered. It was placed gently atop a plain brown envelope with just one line written across it. "You stole 4 years of my life. I stole your future." Claire opened the envelope. Inside was a 4x6 Polaroid. Zach's BMW, parked in a dark, empty lot, soaked in gasoline. A shadowy figure stood beside it. The next frame, the car engulfed in flames. The very same BMW Zach had used back in 2019 when he began dropping the kids off and started seducing Claire. Claire's hands trembled. She dialed Zach's number. No answer. She filed a report with the local precinct. But when officers reached the site, they found nothing but a burned-out husk of a vehicle and a phone resting on the dashboard. The screen was shattered. But the tech team recovered one surviving file. A voice message. Tyler's voice. "Claire, you chose your war. I chose my weapons." The next 48 hours were a crumbling nightmare. Claire was logged out of her banking app. Every time she tried to log back in, the OPT failed. The next morning, a registered mail arrived. 3 of her bank accounts had been temporarily frozen due to suspicious activity. She went grocery shopping and tried to pay with her credit card. Declined. In a panic, Claire rushed to her home office and opened the finance spreadsheet she'd maintained for years. But now, the screen flashed. File corrupted or moved. She went looking for Tyler. But Tyler wasn't Tyler anymore. He had become a quiet shadow in the house, smiling softly, never responding. Claire's breakdown began slowly. The kind that doesn't scream, but crumbles. She sat in the bedroom, crying for the first time. Alone. She called her mother. Her voice cracked. "Mom, I need help." The reply came cold. "Claire, what you did is unforgivable. We're just taking some distance." Claire couldn't reach Zach either. His number was inactive. His Instagram, gone. And then, like the final blow of a slow, methodical hammer, a subpoena arrived. Family Court of California, petition for custody hearing, filed by Tyler. When Claire entered the courtroom, the scene looked almost absurd. Tyler wore a cheap brown suit. His eyes looked tired. He carried an old briefcase, but his posture was steady, like a man pretending to lose while advancing every move behind the scenes. Claire's lawyer whispered, "He's playing the sympathy card." Claire stared forward. "No," she said. "He's building a trap." The hearing began. The judge, Marie Lexton, had previously ruled in Claire's favor in past divorce cases. Claire tried to appear composed. She stated her demands clearly: sole custody of the children, financial support, and alimony, arguing Tyler was now mentally unstable. But the storm had already been set in motion. The judge looked over at Tyler. "Mr. Grayson, do you have a response?" Tyler's attorney, a bald, quiet, razor-sharp man named Joel Lemons, stood and said, "Yes, Your Honor. My client would like to submit evidentiary files before offering a verbal response." He placed a thick folder on the table, one Claire had never seen before. The judge glanced down and opened it. Inside were 2 DNA reports, confirming biological disconnection, 17 surveillance photographs, intimate moments between Claire and Zach, an iPad voice recording. Claire whispering to her daughter, "You're Zach's little secret too." And a timeline, matching Claire's cash withdrawals with nights she'd stayed with Zach. Claire's eyes welled up. She stood, trembling. "This is manipulated. He twisted everything." The judge looked at her calmly. "These aren't speculations, Mrs. Grayson. These are documented facts." Claire broke down in tears. Tyler's face didn't move. His expression was blank, almost peaceful, as if every tear Claire shed left a quiet scar of satisfaction inside him. The judge reserved the ruling. But as they exited the courtroom, Claire turned to Tyler and asked, "Why are you doing this to me?" Tyler replied softly, "I'm not doing anything. I'm just balancing the books." Claire sat down on the courthouse steps, subpoena in hand, with a single rose petal in her lap, the same one she found on her porch that morning. Tyler walked back into the courtroom. In that same cheap brown suit, shoulders slightly slouched, but with a confidence in his stride that hadn't been there before. Judge Marie Lexton's courtroom, once the place Claire believed she'd win back legal control through sympathy, had now become the arena for something else entirely. She had forgotten. Tyler Grayson was no longer an accountant. He was now a strategist. He had treated his life like a spreadsheet, turned his pain into data, his betrayal into evidence. The judge called the next hearing to order. "Mrs. Claire Grayson, as per last submission, this hearing is to address custody, financial support, and possible misconduct affecting child welfare. Mr. Grayson, do you have further evidence?" Joel Lemons stepped forward again. This time, instead of a folder, he connected an external hard drive to the courtroom projector. The screen lit up. First video, Claire and Zach in a hotel room, filmed from a concealed camera at the doorway. Claire's voice was clear. "Tyler's weak. He'll never survive a custody battle. He's too soft. If we push just a little more, he'll break." Second video. Ava and Riley playing with Claire in the living room, while Claire spoke to Zach over the phone. "Don't worry, I'll tell the kids you're just my student friend. Ava already thinks you're funny. I'll twist it." The judge slowly took off her glasses. Silence gripped the courtroom. You could hear a pin drop. Claire turned to her attorney, lips trembling. Do something. But Joel Lemons wasn't finished. There's more, he said calmly. Next exhibit, a timeline of financial transactions. Projected on the screen were Claire's expenditures, wellness retreats, late-night ride shares, luxury spa visits, and one Venmo payment labeled, "For our secret place," sent to Zach. Claire's attorney raised an objection. Your Honor, this is a clear violation of privacy. The judge replied coldly, not if it directly affects custodial fitness and financial misconduct. Claire was shaking. The courtroom benches now felt less like support and more like a witness stand closing in around her. And then, Tyler stood. For the first time in the entire case, he spoke in court. His voice was steady, quiet, but sharp. Your Honor, I never wanted to be here. I always believed family matters didn't belong in courtrooms. But when I discovered that the daughters I raised, fed, and loved weren't biologically mine and were being emotionally manipulated, I realized silence isn't strength. It's complicity. He stepped forward, locking eyes with the judge. She used love as a smokescreen, turned our home into a stage. She gambled with my children's identities, my finances, and every piece of trust I spent a decade building. And I have the records. Every transaction, every email, every call log, every timeline, to prove it. Claire was now sobbing uncontrollably. Mascara streaked down her face. Her breathing was shallow and erratic. But courtrooms aren't built for sympathy. They're built for evidence. The judge delivered her ruling. Primary custody awarded to Tyler. Claire granted only supervised visitation. A preliminary child endangerment hearing scheduled for Claire. Alimony and financial claims. Denied, due to marital fraud and misrepresentation. Claire ordered to reimburse 40% of Tyler's legal expenses. Claire collapsed, literally, onto the courtroom floor. Her hands trembled. Her face was frozen in disbelief. Tyler walked out of the courtroom. Reporters were waiting, microphones extended. But he said nothing. He did only one thing. Pulled a small folded note from his jacket pocket and pinned it to the courthouse bulletin board. It read, Audit closed. Liability eliminated. Back home, Ava and Riley didn't ask much. Just one question. Is Mom okay? Tyler didn't answer. He simply took their hands and led them to the backyard where he'd built a new treehouse. It was the beginning of a new chapter. That night, Claire received a new postcard in her mailbox. It read, Only real value is what survives audit. Claire Grayson was now trapped in the ruins of a kingdom she built herself. The woman who once sparkled at Friday brunches now flinched at Monday morning legal mail. Her face was no longer seen on coffee tables among friends, but whispered about in local gossip circles. That Claire, the one who turned her kids' lives into a lie. After losing in family court, Claire began to feel a darker shadow closing in. Child Protective Services launched an investigation into her for emotional manipulation of minors. The school temporarily suspended her children, pending family evaluation. And Zach? Gone. Completely vanished. Desperate for answers, Claire called an old acquaintance, Drew, who used to work with Zach. But when he answered, his voice was cold. You didn't know. Zach's my cousin, always has been, and I warned him about you. Another dagger, this time not in her back, but straight to her face. Even her BMW was gone now. Loan payments had been overdue for 3 months. And one morning, as she stepped outside with a cup of coffee, she saw a tow truck hauling it away. Claire ran, yelling, Wait, just give me 2 more days. The driver shook his head. Ma'am, it's already been auctioned. Your bank filed last week. As she turned back toward the porch, she spotted a scrap of paper on the step. No name, no return address, just one line. Luxury is a liability when truth is bankrupt. She tore it up, but her hands wouldn't stop shaking. The next week, the foreclosure notice arrived. The court had denied her alimony. The final deadline to pay legal fees had passed. And now, the mortgage company had started seizure proceedings on the house. Claire called her parents, the same parents who once seemed emotionally close. But on the other end of the line came only this. Claire, we love you, but we can't support what you've done. The girls deserve better. Claire hung up the phone. Her eyes were dry, but her soul was starting to leak. That same evening, she drove to the parking lot of her old high school and sat in silence, replaying Zach's voicemail over and over again. "Hey, it's Zach. Leave a message." No response, just static hope. Then suddenly, another voicemail appeared, this time from a private number. It wasn't Tyler's voice. It was a woman's. "You don't recognize me, but I used to be married to someone like you, and I lost everything. Until I met him." Claire's heart skipped. Then the next line hit. "He sees people as patterns. And you, Claire, you were predictable. Very predictable." Claire began to feel it, the eerie sense that someone was still watching her. She became paranoid. Every time she walked into a diner, every time a woman sat near her, she'd think, is she the one from the voicemail? Once, she even asked a waitress, "Do I know you?" The girl blinked and said, "Ma'am, I just work here." But Claire no longer believed that. Later that week, Claire accepted a job as a waitress at a small diner. On her application, she wrote, "Family tragedy, rebuilding life, seeking stability." What she didn't know was that her shift manager had once worked for the very same firm where Tyler, now legally known as Raymond Cole, had opened his forensic audit consultancy. Claire's every move was now being cataloged. Meanwhile, Tyler, now Raymond Cole, ran a quiet little office in a coastal town. His services were discreet. Confidential divorces, emotional asset protection, shadow mediation. His clients? Politicians' wives, bankrupt CEOs, women escaping abusive partners. His motto was, "We don't erase the past, we reassign it." Raymond didn't need a name anymore. He only needed a pattern. And Claire had taught him every one. One day, a new file landed on his desk, sent by the ex-husband of a judge. A name Tyler knew well. Judge Marie Lexton, the same judge who had once shown Claire courtroom sympathy and dismissed Tyler as financially negligent before hearing his case. Raymond opened the folder and said, "Let's balance one more sheet." In the ocean winds of California, there was no longer a man named Tyler Grayson. There was only Raymond Cole. He lived in a coastal town where waves slammed against stone all day, humming like a secret hymn. The local courthouse stood quietly in the town's old district, and just 2 blocks behind it, Raymond had set up a private consultancy called Quiet Exit Solutions. There was no signboard, no receptionist, just a gray door beside an old intercom. And behind that door, a faint scent of lavender oil and cedarwood, a wooden desk, a single monitor, and a quote on the wall. "We're not your lawyers. We're your strategy." Raymond now helped those who had been failed or hunted by the legal system. He reviewed files, decoded phone records, analyzed GPS data, and turned people's pain into structure. But in every client, he searched for patterns. Someone like Claire, someone like Zach, and sometimes, someone like Marie Lexton. Judge Marie Lexton, the one who once ruled in Claire's favor, the one who ignored Tyler's evidence. Now she was facing her own messy divorce. Her ex-husband, Alan Lexton, a retired city planner, walked into Raymond's office carrying a brown envelope. "Your name came highly recommended," he said. "They say you fix things no one else touches." Raymond opened the envelope. Inside, a notebook. Every expense Marie had logged over 2 years. Family court funds, charity gala budgets, and most alarming of all, out-of-state travel reimbursements, with no official reason listed. 2 trips stood out, Miami and Cabo, both funded by the court, both booked with Zach's name listed as a joint guest. Raymond gave a slight nod. She judged me once. Let's audit the judge. Within 2 weeks, Raymond's team, now consisting of a forensic accountant, an ethical hacker, and a former investigative journalist, had unraveled Marie's entire financial profile. What they found was damning: misuse of court-appointed funds, unauthorized travel, and links to personal biases in child custody rulings, particularly one involving attorney Joel Lemons and his client, Claire Grayson. An anonymous complaint was submitted. Possible misuse of judicial funds and personal bias in custody cases involving attorney-client collusion. And then, the headlines hit. Judge Lexton under review for financial discrepancies and professional misconduct. Custody ruling reevaluated as new footage surfaces. Marie's world had begun to crumble. Meanwhile, Claire was still working at the diner, hair tied in a ponytail, exhaustion painted on her face, and a name tag that simply read, C. One afternoon, a woman walked in, early 30s, neatly dressed, soft curls, confident stride. She sat at Claire's table and said, "Black coffee and a story." Claire brought the coffee, hesitating. "Sorry, have we met?" The woman smiled. "Not yet, but I know you." Claire stiffened. "Do you work at the courthouse?" "Closer than you think," the woman replied. Then she leaned in and said gently, "Raymond sends his regards." Claire's breath caught. Her hand jerked back from the coffee table like it had touched fire. But the woman remained calm, reaching into her purse and placing a USB drive into Claire's hand. "Watch this. It's your life, the way he saw it." Claire opened her mouth to speak, but the woman was already standing. She walked toward the exit, then turned briefly and said, "You don't recognize me, but I was married to someone like you, and when I lost everything, he helped me get even." Claire stared at the USB, whispering one name under her breath. Raymond. She now understood. He was everywhere, and nowhere at all. The next night, Raymond sat in his office, flipping through a new client's file when an email came in. Subject: She watched the USB. Message: She cried. Raymond didn't reply. He simply closed the folder, pulled out the next one. Title: Child Custody Fraud, Wyoming Case, Daniels v. Stone. But there was a yellow sticky note attached. Handled by Claire Grayson, Paralegal, 2015 to 2017. Raymond let out a small, almost amused smile and said softly, "Guess she's going to keep showing up." Along the coast of Cadiz, Spain, there was a small villa the locals called La Sombra, the shadow. From the hills above, only its rooftop was visible, like a secret buried in the earth. Each morning, the ocean winds danced around its stone walls, and every night, a man sat on the terrace, quietly burning old accounting ledgers. His name now was Elijah Brand. He had acquired a new identity under a Panamanian passport. He knew the art of disappearing, but this time, he wasn't starting over. He was finishing the final story. Elijah wasn't alone. With him lived Vanessa Cole, the same woman who had handed Claire the USB in the diner, a former defense attorney who'd escaped an abusive husband and later contacted Elijah. Now the two of them worked as a discreet unit, shadow consultants who handled the world's messiest emotional collapses with surgical precision. Elijah's motto was, "Justice is not loud. It whispers, then it erases." They took on only certain types of clients: custody reassignments, offshore asset redistributions, public exposure strategies, but only cases that met a strict condition. No greed, only balance. In one room of the villa sat a single bookshelf. Most of it was empty, except for one book. Its title, The Final Ledger, by Elijah Brand, a pseudonym. On Amazon, it was a cult bestseller. Readers hailed it as a chilling, intelligent revenge thriller. But for those who knew, it was something else entirely, a confession. Every chapter, every page, a recorded legacy of a former life. Claire was still in California, living in a small two-bedroom rental apartment. Custody had been permanently awarded to Tyler. She saw the children only twice a month under supervised visitation. But even then, the girls had started to pull away. The fraud and manipulation charges against her had been quietly suspended, on technical grounds, because Tyler had refused to give a deposition, a refusal Claire would never forget. But it wasn't mercy. It was Elijah's final move. He didn't want to punish her in court. He wanted her punished by loneliness. Now Claire ran a trauma recovery support group. Ironic, but strangely cathartic. One day she received an envelope. No stamp, no return address, just her name on the front. Inside there was nothing, except a single photograph. A villa, nestled by the sea, beneath an open sky. On the back, handwritten, ledger settled, page closed. Claire pinned the photo to her wall. Not out of guilt, not from nostalgia, but because somehow she finally understood. Somewhere far from her, Elijah ran toward the hills every morning, and every evening he sat beside Vanessa as the sun dipped into the ocean, reviewing the day's justice cases. One night, Vanessa asked, "Do you ever miss your old life?" Elijah shook his head. I don't miss it. I accounted for it." Then he opened a new case file on his tablet. Client, Caleb York. Issue, spousal financial abuse. Risk level, red. Vanessa leaned in. "Another ledger?" Elijah smiled. "Only one way to know if the page fits." The waves crashed softly against the rocks below. The world didn't know Elijah Brand's face, but it remembered his silence and his precision. He wasn't just a man anymore. He had become a system. And the final rule of that system? Don't ask for what was lost. Redefine it.